Kwenzekani che namhlanje? See double barrel there.
Ngiyatesta. Lena ye-tablet. It's skewed.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, ayiveli kahle wayibona.
Yeah,
So
it's fine.
Should I leave it? Yeah,
It's fine now.
doesn't appear well. Honorable Petition. Kunjani baba?
Now, Chairperson, anything apologizing. Zoba load shedding. Can I switch off my video?
Yeah,
Mhlongo.
please.
Thank you very much.
No, yeah, it's right. As I says.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Chairperson, I will have the same challenge if I'm permitted not to use my video, please.
Oh, okay. No, you're welcome, Honorable Member. We'll try our best to make it a success.
Thank you,
Very much. Thank you, Mr. Van Staden.
Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
Honorable members,
Recording in progress.
I welcome all members who have logged in to the visual mini-plenary session. There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you very much. Honorable members, before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual mini-plenary is deemed to be in the precinct of Parliament and constitutes a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition to the rules of visual sittings, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of the debate, apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly. Members should equally note that anything said in the visual platform is deemed to have been said to the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphones and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up noise which might disturb the attention of other members. When recognized to speak, please unmute your microphone, and where connectivity permits, connect your video. Members may make use of the icons on the bar at the bottom of their screens, which has an option that allows a member to put up his or her hand to raise points of order. The Secretariat will assist in alerting the chairperson to members requesting to speak. When using the visual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary points of order or interjections. Lastly, I wish to remind you that we are meeting in a mini-plenary session, and therefore any decisions will be taken in a full plenary session of the Assembly. The first order of the day is the consideration of request for approval by Parliament of treaty for the establishment of the African Medicines Agency, AMA, in terms of Section 2312 of the Constitution of 1996. I now call the Honorable Jacobs to make a presentation.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Thank you, House Chairperson. The ratification for the establishment of the African Medicines Agency Treaty was tabled in Parliament and referred to the committee on 29 September 2022. The Portfolio Committee on Health received input on the AMA Treaty from the Department of Health on the 17th of May 2023. The treaty for the establishment of the AMA or African Medicines Agency was adopted by the African Union Assembly at the 32nd Ordinary Session of 11 February 2019 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The Assembly called on member states to sign and ratify the treaty to enable the treaty to enter into force. The objectives of the AMA are to enhance the capacity of state parties and regional economic communities to regulate medical products in order to improve access to quality, safe and efficacious medical products on the continent. The AMA will promote the adoption and harmonization of medical products, frequently regulatory policies and standards, as well as provide scientific guidelines and coordinate existing regulatory harmonization efforts in the African Union, recognize regional economic communities, and regional health organizations. In order to achieve its mandate, the AMA intends to work with technical partners such as the World Health Organization, European Medicines Agency, and the United States Food and Drug Administration for the alignment with normative standards, technical cooperation, and capacity building. The African National Congress supports the ratification of the treaty as it aligns with the ANC's broad objectives to improve health locally and in the continent. The ANC recognizes in its 6th National Policy Conference report that, open quotes, Africa's response to COVID-19 has shown the importance of cooperation, sharing of information, exchange of expertise, and solidarity, close quote. Calling for South Africa to draw on our country's experience as chair of the African Union, particularly in coordinating the response to COVID-19 and in establishing the basis for a new health order in Africa. The African Medicines Agency is such a health order. Therefore, the ANC regards the treaty as a critical instrument and an extension of its policy objectives of enhancing healthcare and building African unity, as echoed in its 2023 priority areas, which include action to build a better Africa and world. As the ANC, we want to see the realization of an entity for African states to combine resources and knowledge, centering the African continent as a credible force in the global health sphere. The Portfolio Committee on Health therefore requests Parliament to approve the treaty for the establishment of the African Medicines Agency. Thank you again, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jacobs. The Honorable Clark is the next speaker.
Thank you, Chairperson. The ratification of the Treaty for the Establishment of Africa Medicine Agency is a very important treaty for Africa and its entirety. The treaty has the potential to transform healthcare across Africa, enhance access to safe and effective medicines, and significantly improve the health and well-being of our people. AMA envisioned under this treaty is a monumental step towards achieving a healthier, more prosperous and self-reliant Africa. It is designed to facilitate the regulation and harmonization of pharmaceuticals across our country, thus ensuring that all Africans have access to quality medicines that meet international standards and in turn will reduce the burden of disease, save lives and bolster our healthcare system. However, there is an undeniable challenge that we must confront head on, the issue of funding. As it stands, there is no concrete funding model in place to support the implementation of this treaty, particularly from the perspective of South Africa. The all-important question, how will South Africa at this stage afford the funding that is required? Does each member state pay an equal amount? If not, how are the costs determined? With this current economic crisis and the department's inability to face the truth about financing the NHI, we need to know how AMA membership will impact the health entities and their long-term goals and budgets. During the discussion at the committee, the chair himself asked these very same questions and gave the department an instruction to come back to the committee and give us a financial costing model. While we recognize the noble objectives of AMA, we must also be realistic about the financial commitments it will entail. To overcome this challenge, it is imperative that we engage in open and constructive dialogue among African nations to establish a sustainable funding mechanism. South Africa should be committed to the health and the well-being of its citizens across the African continent. They too should be willing to play a part in contributing to this noble cause. However, it is essential that we work together to ensure that the burden of funding is equitably distributed among all participating nations. The question still remains unanswered, and that is the following. Are member states' annual performance monitored, and does failure to reach targets impact membership in any way? AMA should comply like the UN does if it fails to meet its set targets. It must also be quantified that the real value South Africa will earn if ratifying this treaty. AMA must have the ability to enforce punitive measures when necessary on sovereign jurisdiction. There must be a clause inserted that South Africa is able to opt out under certain conditions and to what extent its sovereignty is honored. We need to explore various avenues for financing, such as contributions from member states based in their economic capacities, partnerships with international organizations, private sector investments, and innovative finance mechanisms. The collaborative effort will not only ensure the financial viability of AMA, but also strengthen our collective commitment to improving healthcare in Africa. In conclusion, the Treaty AMA represents a significant stride towards healthier Africa. It has the potential to revolutionize healthcare on our continent, but it cannot succeed without adequate funding. South Africa acknowledges the need for funding contributions to make this treaty a reality and is ready to engage in discussions to find a sustainable funding model that works for all. Although we supported this treaty at the Health Committee, we did not get the information in terms of the funding model from the department as requested by the committee and the chairperson. I therefore recommend that the treaty be reverted back to the committee so that we are presented with the requested funding model. As African nations, we must unite in our commitment to better healthcare and work tirelessly to ensure that AMA becomes a beacon of hope for all Africans, regardless of their economic status. Together, we can build a healthier, more prosperous Africa for generations to come. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. A member from the EFF. Thank you very much.
The EFF supports the request for the approval of treaty for the establishment of the African Medicines Agency. so that prioritization of investment for regulatory capacity development can actually take place, and to pursue the efforts towards convergence and harmonization of medical products regulation at the level of regional economic communities. AMA aims to bridge the gap on ineffective regional collaborations among national regulatory bodies in the continent that have made preventable diseases thrive. However, opportunistic leaders in the continent who pledge loyalty and allegiance to the West must know that this vehicle must not be used to drive their ambitions of selling the African continent to the highest bidder, like we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic. AMA also plans to be more visible by facilitating safe monitoring, market surveillance, market authorization, oversight of clinical trials, coordination of quality control laboratory services, and the joint assessments and good manufacturing practice. Minister Joe Phaahla and other African ministers in the health department must be warned to wane the insistence to allow Western penetration in our medical sector without the adequate processes followed, and to not compromise our people like they did with Pfizer vaccines and other vaccines during the COVID-19 pandemic. Harmonization in the African continent is cost-effective, such as speed access to essential medicines and ensuring efficient use of resources through work sharing, and allows opportunity to mitigate the effects of COVID-19 pandemic by allowing the free movement of pharmaceuticals and PPE. The basic tenet of the economic benefits of a united African continent is precisely that. Insufficient access to quality, safe, efficacious, and affordable medical products is largely attributed to weak or absent medicines regulatory systems. Regional economic communities have different procedures and systems, and the EFF has maintained, even domestically, the need for district-based operational centers during the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. The EFF supports the establishment of the African Medicine Agency. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Thank you very much. Do you have a member from the IFP? A member from the IFP? Okay, I pass. A member from the FF Plus, the Honorable Van Staden.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Chairpersons, this treaty's aim that is currently before us is to ensure that all Africans have access to quality, assured, safe and affordable medical products that meet internationally recognized standards for priority diseases or conditions. Out of the 55 African Union member countries, 30 countries have ratified this treaty as of March 2023. This treaty has not yet been signed by South Africa. The matter of concern is that it appears that the treaty will require additional budgetary allocation from Parliament over and above a budget provided to this department in terms of an annual contribution that have to be made to the African Medicines Agency. We can also take note with concern that South Africa will have no control over the amount it will have to pay, as it will be determined by the Conference of the Parties. The State Law Advisor advised on the 25th November 2021 that it is essential that the Department of Health makes provision for a membership fee and consult National Treasury on any extra budgetary requirements. Artikel 231 van die grondwet is baie duidelik dat enige internasionale verdrag of verdrag wat deur Suid-Afrika onderteken word, eers bindend is na die goedkeuring daarvan deur die nasionale vergadering en die nasionale raad van provinsies. Die VF+ is van mening dat Suid-Afrika nie tans oor die fondse of oor 'n gesonde ekonomie beskik om as lidland van die Afrika Unie 'n onbekende bedrag aan die African Medicines Agency te betaal nie. Die portefeulje komitee oor gesondheid verkeer tans in die donker oor die bedrag wat betaal moet word. Die VF+ is van mening dat alvorens enige verdrag met die Afrika Unie oor hierdie aangeleentheid onderteken word, daar eers deur die Suid-Afrikaanse regering vasgestel moet word wat die presiese bedrag hiervoor gaan wees. Dan eers kan die portefeulje komitee en nasionale tesourie bepaal of daar wel fondse is om aan die Afrika Unie oor te betaal. South Africa cannot enter into an agreement without the proper information regarding this matter, and the FF+ point of view is that the South African government and the Minister of Health must first discuss this matter at the Conference of Parties of the African Medicines Agency and get clarity of a set amount. It will be highly irresponsible of a government to make any agreement without the proper information that can have serious consequences not only on our economy, but also on the already struggling Department of Health. Net soos wat daar reeds 'n bedrag van 26 miljard in die bodeloomse put vir die nasionale gesondheidsversekering gestort is, wil hierdie regering en hierdie departement 'n verdrag onderteken waarvan ons nie eers seker is wat dit ons as lidland van die Afrika-Unie gaan kos nie. Hierdie verslag behoort eers weer voor die portefeulje komitee oor gesondheid te dien, sodat daar vasgestel kan word waarvoor hierdie regering en hierdie departement op presies gaan inlaat. Die VF+ sal en kan nie op grond van onvoldoende inligting hierdie verdrag ondersteun nie, en die VF+ kan nie 'n blanko cheque aan hierdie regering verskaf nie. Dankie, voorsitter.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. The Honourable M.E. Sukyers.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Chair, it is important for us to note that we are less than 8 months away from an election. This is not the time to sign binding agreements. There will be a new government in 2024, and this ANC government will be seated in the opposition benches next year, if the will of the people of the country translates into votes. In principle, we can all support the goals as stipulated in the AMA document of improving access to quality, safe and effective medical products, and joint partnerships, streamlining of systems and upscaling of efforts to improve access are all instruments of improvement, if all things remain equal as stipulated in the treaty. But we are in no position to ratify this treaty today. This Parliament is being asked to ratify this treaty blindly when it comes to cost. We have learned very expensive lessons under COVID, and one of the outstanding ones is that the principles of democracy can be ignored by confidentiality agreements. Chairperson, we live in a period where the public trust in governments around the world is at an all-time low because of that. As a responsible Parliament and responsible public representatives, we must request that cost implications, terms of reference are presented to the committee before we ratify this treaty. Practices of good governance and stewardship demands that we do. The ACTDP does not support this ratification that would bind us to terms and costs that we have not fully calculated or considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. A member from the UDM? Honourable Member from the UDM? Honourable Member from the ATM? The Honourable Member from Good? The Honourable Member from AIC? The Honourable Member from COPE? The Honourable Member from the PAC? Honourable NV Pava, please close the debate.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we just want to clarify one thing, that ANC is a sound and trusted government carrying, and it does its research and work very well. I just want to clarify Freedom Front. The other thing, Chair, on Honourable Sukyers, the ANC, the dreamers, those that are saying the ANC will be in the opposition, continue to dream. Honourable Chairperson, the African Medicine Agency provide us with an opportunity to fast-track our access to highly quality medicine, strengthen medical research and improve our capacity to detect, prevent and respond to outbreaks. This will go a long way in improving the health outcomes of not only the country, but also the continent at large. The treaty is also especially significant because the Africa Continental Free Trade Area will result in a boom in industries and in the movement of goods and services. Thus, South Africa must play its role in strengthening cross-border market regulations against unregulated falsified medicine. Honourable Chairperson, a robust healthcare system which is eligible in responding to the needs of its people in the cornerstone for any nation's sustained development. It is only when our people are healthy that they are able to realize their full potential and be productive beings who can work and invest back in countries' physical, which is essential for economic development. As the ANC, we realize and appreciate that we cannot build a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous country without improving the health and quality of our people. President Ramaphosa once said, through our nations, we are bringing our collective energies to bear of service of our people. We are working together towards the achievement of redress. We are working together for the public good, for social cohesion of economic progress, as Madiba said, for peace. We are working together towards building the South Africa we want. I thank you, Chairperson. The ANC support district. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. That, Honorable Members, concludes the debate. We shall now proceed to the second order, which is the consideration of request for approval of African Charter on the values and principles of decentralization, local governance and local development in terms of Section 231(2) of the Constitution of 1996. The Honorable Klasa is invited to take the podium. Honorable Klasa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members. The Speaker referred to the African Charter on the values and principles of decentralization, local governance, and local development to the Portfolio Committee for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs as per the ATC 30 of the 8th of March 2023. Having met as a committee on the 2nd of May 2023 to discuss the Charter's contents, the committee unanimously agreed on its importance and necessity, and thus resolved to recommend to the National Assembly to adopt the agreement. The committee premised its recommendations on the observation that values and principles of decentralization, local government, and local development championed in the Charter are intrinsic to the South African system of cooperative governance and intergovernmental relations. However, we were also cognizant of the reality that not all African Union members share these values and principles, with some states heavily leaning towards outright centralization of administration. On this basis, the committee fully appreciates the rationale behind the Charter's development and the necessity for all African Union member states to ratify it. This will go a long way towards deepening local democracy and improving local people's livelihoods across the continent. While member states agreed on the 27th of June 2014, several of them are yet to ratify it, including South Africa. The agreement is not binding until ratified. The committee therefore recommends to the National Assembly to pass a resolution to approve the Charter in accordance with Section 231, subsection 2 of the South African Constitution. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Klasa. The Honorable Spies from the DA.
Good morning, Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, allow me to express my concerns about the divergence in practice between the proposed district development model and the impending adoption of the African Charter on the values and principles of decentralization and local economic development. Let's get real. The district development model as proposed by the ANC seems like a noble idea on paper. It talks about improving service delivery and empowering communities. But the devil is in the details. In practice, we've seen a tendency towards centralization where decisions are made far from communities they affect. It's great to talk about coordination between government spheres, but will this model truly empower local authorities? Not at all. Now let's talk about the African Charter on decentralization and local governance and local economic development. It champions decentralization and local governance, emphasizing community participation and economic empowerment. But how does this square with the DDM? It's like trying to mix oil and water. The Charter talks about subsidiarity, which means decisions should be made at the lowest level possible. Contrast this with the DDM, which often centralizes decision-making. So here's the crux of the matter. If the South African government wants to adhere to the Charter, it needs a reality check and stop its efforts to roll out the DDM. Firstly, if we want to empower local authorities, stop paying lip service to local governments, give them the real power and resources they need to make decisions that genuinely benefit their communities. Community engagement, saying you involve communities is one thing, but actually doing it is another. Let us make sure that citizens have a real say in their own development. When we talk economic empowerment, don't just talk about it. Act on it. Support local businesses, create real jobs, and foster entrepreneurship where it matters, at the grassroots level. Balanced development. Recognize that one size does not fit all. Every district has unique needs. Don't steamroll local priorities in the name of national ones. The Western Cape government might have to take the national government to court over the devolution of powers to the province. This is a clear contradiction with the Charter's Article 6, which deals with subsidiarity, the very principle that the Charter espouses. It's ironic, isn't it? We are talking about decentralization on the one hand, but on the other, we are seeing a central government unwilling to let go of its grip. In conclusion, Chairperson, we need more than just words and grand ideals. We need actions that aligns with the principles we claim to uphold. Let's not fall into the trap of lofty but contradictory objectives. The district development model and the African Charter on decentralization and local governance and local economic development cannot effectively function together. The ANC government needs to check if the right hand knows what the left hand is doing, because at the moment they appear dazed and confused. I thank you, Chairperson. The DA supports the report.
Thank you very much, Honorable Space. A member from the EFF.
Thank you very much. Is Mkhalipi, Honorable Mkhalipi?
You're welcome, Honorable Mkhalipi.
Thank you very much, Chair. We support the Charter on the values and principle of decentralization, local governance, and local development by the AU. As EFF Chair, we have advocated for the decentralization of local government since our arrival in Parliament. Local government is the frontline government, and it must deliver services to the people without fail. Section 152 of the Constitution mandates the local sphere of government to, amongst other responsibility, provide democratic and accountable local government to communities and ensure that services are provided to impoverished communities. The department has a significant task to strengthen the capacity of dysfunctional municipalities so they can manage their affairs effectively. Ultimately, municipalities must deliver services to the people. This charter should suggest methods to influence budget allocation by the national government and to curb corruption, which contributes to the collapse of municipalities. This collapse is largely due to blunted corruption within the department, where cadre deployment occupies alternative position and ends up diverting funds intended to benefit the department. The decentralization not only empowers local communities, but also facilitates quicker and more tailored responses to their unique needs and challenges. Increased accountability at the local level is crucial. When decision-making powers are decentralized, citizens have a more direct influence, which can lead to more transparent and effective governance. Training and capacity building are paramount. As we move toward decentralization, there should be an emphasis on equipping local government officials with the skills and knowledge needed to manage their responsibilities efficiently and ethically. We must stop the cadre deployment in order for the local government to be effective. Therefore, we support these reports, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Member from the IFP. An honorable member from the IFP. We pass. The honorable member from the FF Plus, the Honorable M. Groenewald.
Thank you, Chair. The African Union adopted the African Charter on the values and principles of decentralization, local government and local development in 2014. It stated it was inspired by the AU vision of an integrated, prosperous and peaceful Africa. There was seemingly consensus in the AU that the decentralization or devolution of powers to the regional and local governments within the respective states was essential to promote, amongst others, accountable and transparent public institutions to secure the delivery of quality services to citizens throughout Africa. An important principle in the Charter also that an obligation is placed on the signatories to empower local government to effectively and efficiently discharge their responsibilities to their communities. In further emphasis, the adequate protection and sustainable use of natural resources at the local level. The establishment of effective mechanisms to fight bribery and corruption at local level to ensure accountable governance was also highlighted. Signatories also undertook to place decentralization and local development at the center of their governance and development policies. These principles and objectives contained in the Charter are all sound and commendable. The effective implementation of these principles in a country such as Rwanda has made a major contribution to the country's continued economic growth at an average of
Honorable Groenewald.
Sorry, Chair, the power just come on. So can you still?
Go ahead, Honorable Groenewald. Honorable Groenewald. Load shedding is not friendly with us. Can you hear me, honorable members?
I can hear you, Chairperson.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Groenewald was left with about 2 minutes, I think. No, 1 minute, not 2. Okay, let's proceed to UDM. Do you have a person from the UDM? Do you have a person from the ATM? An honorable member from Good? Honorable member from AIC? An honorable member from COPE? PAC? Honorable Groenewald, if you are ready to complete your time, you are left with a minute. So Honorable Groenewald is gone.
Chairperson, my apologies.
Oh, okay, you still have a minute to go, Honorable Groenewald. Do you still
I'll
have
try my
anything
best,
to say?
Chairperson. Chairperson, let me try my best. However, what happened in South Africa since the adoption of the Charter of the AU in 2014, South Africa experienced a rapid deterioration in quality of service at municipal level, the capture of looting and state of municipal finance and the resources reach unprecedented heights. The destruction and pollution of our water resources, natural environment continued unabatedly. Especially ANC government municipalities collapsed because of a faction infighting to get control of municipal resources. The maintenance and development of basic infrastructure become almost non-existent and so much more. Government intervention proven ineffective at best and just a continuation of corruption and mismanagement at worst. Section 139 intervention regularly just created new channels for looting by new factions at said players. The district development model has already proven to be just a new set of hollow promises with an aim to placid voters to the run-up to the election in 2024. Apart from the fact that the culture of corruption, entitlement, and cadre deployment became so entrenched with the ANC at all levels of government, the fact also remains that the ANC seems blind to the fact that this outdated socialist policies and centralization of power and the so-called redistribution of unearned wealth will only guarantee the further destruction of South Africa. The Freedom from Plus policy will always decentralization of powers to ensure the effective delivery of services to communities, create a sustainable environment for economic growth and job creation. This is imperative. South Africa will not survive under further ANC rule. So we support the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. The Honourable Hendricks Al-Jamal.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I thought you forgot about me. Honourable House Chair Al-Jamal supports the principle of decentralisation in the African Charter as the next step to bring about a United States of Africa. A United States of Africa must have its roots in every street, in every neighborhood, and in every village in all African countries. So let us start in South Africa. The African Union has agreed on a resolution to silence the guns in Africa. This resolution, for example, must filter down to all our streets. To enforce this agreement, the previous Speaker of this House, who is now the Minister of Defense, has called for a standby force which must include women to enforce the silencing of the guns. In many neighborhoods in Africa, guns terrorize women and children. This also happens on the Cape Flats in Cape Town. In spite of the best endeavors of the police, this month, not far from our airport, in a place called Delft, 4 young children are killed by bullets every day. There are killings by guns in every neighborhood all over Africa. The standby force of Africa and the standby force for the region, South Africa forms in, must be a continental police force to supplement the continental army making up standby forces. If a culture develops to decentralize the resolution to silence the guns successful in our streets, and this filters up to silence the guns between warring factions and silence the guns between countries and regions, we will have a peaceful Africa. So Al-Jamal supports the principle of decentralization in whichever way it will contribute to the United States of Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Hendricks. Hold your horses, Honourable Member, please. We now invite the Honourable Hadebe from the ANC.
Thank you, Chair. Please bear with me. I'm affected by load shedding, so I've tried to locate a very peaceful and quiet place. I couldn't find it. Fellow South African, the African Union member states unanimously adopted the African Charter on the values and principles of decentralization, local development, and local governance on the 27th of June 2014. This historic decision followed a resolution by the AU Executive Council on the 28th of June 2012, which received a full endorsement by the Assembly of the Heads of States and Governments, marking a significant milestone in the Charter's development. This Charter constitutes the fifth in a series of similar agreements, including the African Charter on the Values and Principles of Public Service and Administration in 2011, the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance in 2007, the AU Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, and the African Charter on Human and People's Rights in 1981. Collectively, these charters form a foundation for Africa's commitment to upholding key principles, values across various domains. The primary objective of this charter is to promote and advocate for the values and principles for decentralization, local governance, and local development as an integral tool for enhancing the quality of life for all inhabitants of the African continent. This commitment resonates with the overarching goal of the African Union to foster sustainable development, inclusivity, and prosperity. As an AU member state, South Africa is obliged to rectify or accede to the African Charter on the values and principles of decentralization, local development, and local government. As per Section 231, subsection 2 of our Constitution, the formal approval of the international agreement requires a resolution by both the National Assembly and NCOP. Following extensive consideration and deliberation on the African Charter on the values, principles of decentralization, local governance, and local development, considering the procedures outlined in Section 231 of the Constitution, the Portfolio Committee on Quota overwhelmingly recommended the Charter's approval by the National Assembly. As the African National Congress extends its unwavering support for this Charter, we firmly believe that it aligns seamlessly with the core tenets of ANC values as articulated both in the Freedom Charter and in the ANC Ready to Govern document. The Charter embodies principles crucial to those foundation documents, positioning the ANC as a champion of an inclusive, participatory, transparent, and corrupt-free government dedicated to improving the livelihood of our communities. Local government plays a pivotal role as a critical facilitator of service delivery and local development initiatives. To ensure effective and democratic functioning of those spheres of government, the Charter emphasizes these principles and values as a fundamental to enhancing a well-being of our people. This Charter reaffirms the principle upheld by the AU member states, which centers on deepening participatory democracy, empowering citizens and communities, promoting accountability and transparency in the public institution, safeguarding cultural diversity, and advancing gender and transgender equity at the local level. These principles are aligned with our collective aspiration to build a united, non-racial, non-sexist, and democratic society aimed at uplifting lives of all Africans in line with the ANC vision. In conclusion, Chair, the African Charter on the Values, Principles, and Decentralization, Local Development, and Local Government is a pivotal instrument for advancing Africa's progress, fostering good governance, and enhancing the well-being of our people. The National Assembly, we call upon the National Assembly to recognize the importance of this Charter and support its approval, ensuring that becoming a cornerstone of our efforts to building a better future for all Africans. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Adebe. That concludes the debate, honorable members. The third order. We shall now proceed to the third order, which is the consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Sports, Arts and Culture on a petition from artists and members of the public calling on the Assembly to investigate the commissioning by the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture of the Mzansi National Philharmonic Orchestra at an estimated cost of 54 million, submitted by the Honorable T W Mhlongo, MP. The Honorable Dulani, Chairperson, is invited to take the podium. The Honorable Dulani.
Thank you so much, Honorable the Chairperson. Honorable the Chairperson, I'm presenting this report, which this report did come to the fully fledged committee. Today we are presenting what we've discussed in that meeting, which were compelled to have that meeting by the Office of the Speaker in the petition by Honorable Mhlongo. This petition brings into sharp focus the need for the critical introspection of the historical development of orchestras and the orchestral music sector in South Africa. It also provides the opportunity to reflect on the progress made by the current democratic dispensation to correct the past injustice in the arts, culture, and heritage sector. Furthermore, it is not a secret that before 1994, arts funding and with the funding for the orchestral sector benefited a white minority. The orchestral sector was until recently was one that was almost completely monopolized by the white communities, and attendance as well as participation and employment was reserved for whites only. This is demonstrated by the historical government funding patterns to ensure orchestras such as Transvaal Philharmonic Orchestra, the Cape Performing Arts Board Orchestra, KwaZulu-Natal, the Natal Philharmonic Orchestra, all established before 1994, remain active in historical, urban, colonial centers for the enjoyment and development of a few democracy in South Africa, also brought with it need to transform all arts and culture organizations and systems to ensure that the sector as a whole contributes to nation building, job creation, skills education, and more importantly, the upliftment and inclusion of previously marginalized members of the society. The establishment of Mzansi National Philharmonic Orchestra, which is Mzansi NPO, is a manifestation of the ideals of a transformed, capable, and professional sector for the benefit of all South Africans, born out of recommendation in the revised white paper of arts, culture, and heritage. The Mzansi NPO, launched in July 2022, is the current first national orchestra that works to be inclusive, transformative, and act as a cultural ambassador through strengthening diplomacy, through international and multinational engagements. Chairperson, it should always be noted that prior to the tabling of this petition in Parliament in November 2022, the Portfolio Committee on Sport, Arts and Culture did its due diligence and engaged the department on impetus and process leading to the establishment of Mzansi NPO. During this meeting, Chairperson, in September 2022, the committee, which includes Honorable Mhlongo, was taken through the process of the appointment and aims of the board, the objectives of the orchestra, and the initial funding of the orchestra transferred via the National Arts Council. Now the petition submitted by Honorable Mhlongo in November 2022 asked the National Assembly to investigate 54 million rand that was paid by the department to Mzansi. The committee, after receiving input from Honorable Mhlongo, the department, and Auditor General of South Africa, noted this. In March 2019, the former Minister of Arts and Culture, E.N. Mtet, appointed a task team who were required to conduct feasibility study based on research. Yes.
Your time is up.
I thank you. On Sunday, you must all support Boki.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Mhlongo, you're the next.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. I submitted the petition signed by more than 10,000 people, artists in the sector. The undersigned individuals were requested that 54 million vanity project must be stopped, call for investigation, stop the looting scheme. This is taxpayers' money used for this orchestra. The request to the committee was to investigate all individuals that are involved in this vanity project. Amasela requested the committee to call for inquiry, to investigate, call for evidence, call for witnesses, but the ANC government, which they are in majority in the committee, shut it down. Accountability and transparency is the key for good governance, but the ANC government shut down the request of public participation of e-petition. Irrespective of the AG commented that there are possibilities of irregularities on this project. However, Chairperson, how can one man have several positions in the sector, running the projects, running the orchestra within the same entity? Mr. Dembe is the CEO of the Mzansi Orchestra. Mr. Dembe is the Deputy Chairperson of the National Arts Council, the entity that distributes funding to the Mzansi National Orchestra. He is also the CEO of KwaZulu-Natal Orchestra. This person has several positions. He's the person that registered the National Orchestra 2 months before they received funding from the National Arts Council. How can one man have several positions? How can our funding be allocated within 2 months after registration of the NPO? The DA believe that there's a conflict of interest and the allegation of corruption must be investigated. Amasela, Chairperson, the Minister Zizi Godwa does not see any conflict of interest in Mr. Dembe's involvement in the abusing of power and position. Let us not forget that Minister Zizigodwa did not see any conflict when he received funding from the confidential businessman and the former EOH boss. Now it shows good minister is out of touch with reality. Minister Zizigodwa, I was good minister, you must Google the word conflict of interest and you'll understand that there's a conflict in this issue. Even today, we are still waiting for the audited financial statement from the Mzansi Orchestra. Sisamile and Anamhlanje, we're not sure what is happening. The petition was calling for stop and investigate, but the majority of the ANC did not feel that, and they don't consider public participation as an important issue in this. I've opened a criminal case against this. The Hoxa investigation and the public protector is still pursuing the matter. Effective public participation is so important, and I believe South Africans are seeing to it that in 2024, the ANC government want to loot. Even today, they're still looting, and we call on the members of South Africa, citizens of South Africa, to vote DA. Thank you, Chairperson. We don't support the report in its present form.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mhlongo. An honorable member from the EFF. An honorable member from the EFF. Honorable member, please mute your mic. The honorable IFP from the IFP. Honorable member from the IFP.
Hello, Chair.
Yeah, but Honorable Mukhalipi.
Yes, let me check my member, Chair, please. Sorry for inconvenience.
Okay, but we'll go ahead with the IFP. If the IFP is not there, if your member is ready, can come in.
All right, thanks.
IFP is not there. Okay. EFF, are you ready? Okay, honorable member from the FF Plus, the Honorable Dana.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable House Chair, as usual, nothing done or commissioned by the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture and the National Arts Council with the apparent aim of nation building, social cohesion and upliftment is free of controversy. It is that controversy, the very inability of these bodies to manage and distribute funds properly, that completely destroys these aims. Not long ago, the NIC CEO and CFO was suspended and charged for financial mismanagement over funding meant for artists and creatives during the COVID-19 pandemic to the tune of 300 million rand. After that, there were calls for the National Arts Council to be placed under administration. The Cultural and Creatives Industries Federation of South Africa even opened a criminal case against the National Arts Council. And here we are today, debating a report on yet another action taken against the department and the NIC in the form of a petition against the commissioning of the Mzansi Philharmonic Orchestra for an amount of 54 million rand by artists and creatives in the industry. Why is it that the very people who need and deserve protection and promotion from this department have to look to drastic measures such as criminal charges, petitions, and sit-ins to be heard and listened to? Why do artists need protection from the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture and the National Arts Council? Die VF+ neem kennis van die portefeulje komitee se besluit om die oorweging van die petisie uit te stel tot na die afhandeling van die ouditeur-generaal en die spesiale ondersoekeenheid se ondersoeke. Maar dit is kommerwekkend soortgelyk aan die ANC se al ewige taktiek om te skop vir die kantlyn en nie ooglopende om geruimthede te ondersoek nie. Natuurlik beskik die ANC oor 'n meerderheid in die komitee en in die nasionale vergadering en sal hierdie taktiek ten spyte van die meriete van hierdie versoek voortgesit word. Ironies genoeg is dit egter ook hierdie versuim om klagtes en ongeruimthede behoorlik te hanteer, wat die regerende party se doppie weldra sal klink, en dan sal daar uitkoms en ondersteuning vir praktisyns in die kunsbedryf wees. Tot dan sal ons nie toelaat dat bedrog en korrupsie ooglopend voortgesit word nie. Kantlyn toeskop sal net vir so lank werk. Ek dank u, voorsitter.
Thank you very much, honorable member. EFF, are you ready?
Yes,
Apparently,
Chair.
okay. Go ahead, Honorable Member.
I just got in. I don't know whether are we on arts and culture.
Come again?
I just got in. I'm not sure whether are we on arts and culture.
I will give you. Yeah, we are on arts and culture. I'll give you 4 minutes.
You, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Honorable members, surely ANC has lost its moral and political compass. There's nothing Mzansi about Philharmonic Orchestra, but just ANC's obsession with former colonialist values and norms. Post-1994, we had high hopes and aspirations of mainstreaming of indigenous music genres, such as Mpakanga, whilst the Black Moses of Soul Brothers and Bafimlanginis of this country are still alive. Umgashi of our hotel queens was still alive to transfer skills and mentor young talent. The documentation of Kwaito and Amapiano that have gone global, whilst its proponents are still alive to tell their history. Flap and Zion music that are still housed in former apartheid, dilapidated township halls, but only remembered during election times. Not even the airwaves do we still hear such music, but condolences after condolences, because it is only a death when they see value in honoring us with meaningless tears and the Shakespeare's inspired eulogies. Indeed, 1994, Africans merely attained the political freedom to become voting cows. Thus, they remain systematically excluded from the economic participation. That is why the economic freedom fighters, we are not singing economic philharmonic orchestra in our lifetime, but economic freedom in our lifetime. Was that 24, our 1994? ANC's shallow view of transformation, it is to replace white faces behind the violence of the Western music origins with black faces. And this done against the much desired skills transfer and training of young talent in indigenous music, the manufacturing of indigenous music instruments, promotion, commercialization and exportation of indigenous music and instruments. Umakweyana, Istorotoro, Imbira, Dipila, Umshongosi. No wonder the CEO of Mzansi National Philharmonic Orchestra comes from the Juilliard School that is based in New York, and thus the better candidate that the many graduates from Ongoye, the University of Zululand, amongst other universities in South Africa. This is the same trend followed in selecting Greg Homan from Australia against SA's legendary Philo Market to be the artistic director at Market Theatre. For as long as anti-African National Congress remains in government, all our dreams for a better life will remain a pie in the sky. What is the logic in granting single predominantly white institution 41.5 million, whilst allocating 5 million for CIFSA that has to deal with the creative and cultural sector's socio-economic injustices of the past? The 11 million for SASCOC that is entrusted with humongous responsibility of governance and transformation of all sporting codes in South Africa. 350,000 for documentation of uniquely South African Kwaito music history. The zero budget for promoting traditional music on SABC and radio station. What is worth of ANC? The Department of Communications failure to resuscitate the struggling SABC by subsidizing a dedicated TV channels for South African film and music. The Department of Home Affairs and Treasury allowing importation of USA and European artists to fly our shows every month without even work permits and tax deductions, taking away exorbitant amounts, whilst our own die poor and not allowed to enter foreign countries without work permits and tax-free payments. The Department of Labor dismal failure to define artists as workers, artists and actors as workers. Department of Social Development failure to provide social benefits.
Thank you very much. Your time is up.
So as EFF, we reject the report and we cannot encourage the supporting of a Philharmonic Orchestra.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. An Honorable Member from the UDM. A member from the ATM? Good. AIC? Hope? PAC? The Honorable Malamani? Please close the debate from the ANC.
Malibongwe.
Honorable Malamani?
Honorable Chair, I'm sorry, I'm using some gadget because this one doesn't allow me to unmute. I don't know what is the challenge. Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Malamani.
Yes, Chairperson, as the African National Congress, one of the key strategic objectives is to ensure that we transform various music genres which a minority has dramatically dominated. Orchestra is one of the music genres in which the democratic government should invest resources to support orchestras in historically disadvantaged communities. Therefore, our commitment to transform the orchestra should be sustained despite the concern about the extent of the financial support. Chairperson, honorable members, we as the committee, when we received the request from the office of the speaker about to check or to investigate on the issue that Mr. Mhlongo submitted, we noted the findings and investigation of the Auditor General of South Africa during the financial of 2021-2022 to the Mzansi National Philharmonic Orchestra regarding the non-compliance around the first installment by the National Arts Council was that the NAC with the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture to revisit the transfer itself to establish whether there were any irregularities, as the AGSA felt it was not per prescribed legislative framework. The work of the Mzansi National Philharmonic Orchestra must continue. The department noted that AGSA had not raised any issues that related to non-compliance matters currently. The most important that the committee noted is that for the past 5 financial years, including the audit for the last financial year, no matter of non-compliance had been raised. The consideration of the report is very critical, and as the ANC will support the report, as the department awaits further direction, the petitioner has approached the Special Investigating Unit to investigate the alluded irregularities. The department was requested to supply documents, and the National Arts Council has also stated that the SIU has been in contact with the department. We are confident that the investigation being undertaken will shed light, but we should affirm the program of the department in supporting the Mzansi National Philharmonic Orchestra, which has taken a trajectory of transformation. You know, Chairperson, it's very critical that members, when they come in the podium to speak about the issues, what we're speaking about, they never considered what is it that we're discussing. We're discussing on the investigation of the 54 million that the petitioners has requested us to investigate. But so far, I can see that Honorable Dana from FF Plus never attended the committee. That is why he's speaking something that is not in the report. He is far away from the report because even in the committee, he has never come and contributed. But also, I just want to speak to Mr. Mthetha, Honorable Mthetha. The ANC, it is what it's doing. It's supporting the issue of supporting the orchestra, anyone in South Africa. But I know and understand that you never said in that report, you never put input in that report. That is why you are not even speaking about the issue of the investigation or the outcome. We know and understand that it was only
Hey.
support, Honorable Chair, as we continue to sing.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Your time is up. Honorable Zondi, yeah? Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the debate. We shall now proceed to the last order of the day, which is the consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Human Settlement on Oversight visits to Northern Cape and Northwest Province. The Honorable Semenya, invited to the podium.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair and members, good morning. As the members of the Portfolio Committee on Human Settlement, we play an important role in ensuring the realization of the mandate of the Department of Human Settlement, which is to create sustainable human settlement and improve the quality of household life for all South Africans. We are empowered by the Constitution to hold the executive and the department accountable for the work that they are doing by scrutinizing quarterly, annual reports, annual performance, and strategic plan of the department. We are empowered to conduct oversight visits on the project that are implemented by the department across the various provinces, and we have done so in the two provinces, the Northern Cape, Northwest, on the 27th, 28th, March, 29th, 31st, respectively, this year. The focus of the Portfolio Committee oversight visit was to assess the progress on the implementation of the national key priorities, which are creating sustainable and integrated human settlement, issuance of the title deeds, provision of housing to military veterans, the redevelopment of hostels into community residential units, the management of the housing beneficiary list. We have heard about the progress and the challenges faced by the provincial department in implementation of the various programs and projects, which include the poor performance by government-appointed contractors, a lack of participation by sector department, in particular for the provision of social and economic amenities, and delays related to the approval of the township that affects not only the building of BNG houses, but also the issuance of the title deed. As the Portfolio Committee, we have made recommendations on how to improve the implementation of the program and project. And in some cases, we have given the clear timeframes for the completion of this project. The Portfolio Committee was delighted to see that the province have prioritized the participation of women in the construction industry in Northwest Province. Further, it should be noted that the province is exploring the use of alternative building materials that are climate change resilient. The committee further applauds the Northern Cape Province for managing to upgrade at least 13 informal settlements into phases, meaning that basic services are provided in the informal settlement. Having assessed the progress in implementing the programs and projects of the department in the two provinces, the Northern Cape and Northwest, we hereby table this report in this August House for consideration and adoption. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Semenya. The Honorable Dr. N.V. Khumalo. Okay.
Thank you, House Chair. May I request to keep my video off? I have load shedding from 10 until 12, so I don't want any disturbances.
Okay, Honorable Member.
Thank you, House Chairperson. This report is simply disheartening. The extent of the neglect of the most vulnerable in these provinces is simply sickening. The objective of the oversight was to be briefed on progress on the implementation of the human settlement strategic plans, projects, and its programs. In a nutshell, what is evident in these provinces is that there is simply no political will to serve citizens and to protect their right to decent shelter. This comes as no surprise, of course. In the Northern Cape, it's safe to say that the provincial human settlement operates on skeleton staff, as there are many vacancies there. They are further unable to carry out their mandate as a result of poor planning and lack of urgency to serve. The citation of limited hardware stores from which they can purchase building material and poor performing contractors as challenges is amiss, as these are simply excuses. All the above require good planning and good project management, which they clearly lack. With the 80,000 housing backlog, the province only managed to service 12,000 sites, deliver 1,432 BNG units, and a mere 40 units for FLISP. There was no delivery on the rental housing units, with only 40 community residential units delivered. Worth noting is that the province delivered 786 pre-1994 title deeds and only 513 post-1994. I repeat, only 513 title deeds and not one single new title deed registered. This could well be a middle finger in the to the dignity of all affected. And as usual, what is given are plans. Plans that have been communicated in this regard for many years, yet the progress leaves nothing to admire. The province was not shy to report the poor intergovernmental relations with municipalities. The projects the committee visited in the provinces were a clear reflection of a non-caring government. The Lerato Park community residential units, for example, where residents are unhappy and were misled by the government that the units were for renting to buy, only to find upon occupancy that those units were only for renting. As a result, tenants are now not paying rent or are reversing their debit orders. On the other hand, in Roodepan, rental stock is occupied by residents who simply can't afford to pay rent. The cherry on top is that the province has no idea of the number of occupants, as there was never a beneficiary list developed. Talk about an effective government. The Northwest province is no way any less scarier. The province reported their failure to foster cohesion between the various departments involved in the integrated human settlement planning. Outcome 8 outputs for and targets for 2022-2023, there's not much more than below failure, with only 139 out of 591 of the catalytic projects that were achieved against a target of 95 military veteran houses, 0 achieved. Only 5 block projects out of 247, Chairperson. And this, may I mention, is a ministerial priority, with a target set for all block projects across the country to be unblocked within the next financial year. This is certainly pie in the sky case. The alternative building technology is in both provinces is stagnant, with the exception of the Northwest, as they appointed and paid a service provider to use ABT to complete top structures of houses. And guess what? 0 units were delivered from that initiative. Everything in Northwest is happening at snail pace and not much confidence that rapid pace can ever be achieved. Of all the projects visited, contractors simply don't perform, and yet the province failed to present to us consequences. What is clear is that the ministerial priorities have been given the boot in this province. There is no strategy to eradicate mud houses, no strategy to deal with land invasions, no strategy to manage community residential units, no effective monitoring and evaluation strategies that work. While many residents in these 2 provinces continue to suffer, reports and poor plans are the order of the day. Citizens of these provinces, like many across the country, need to start exercising the power of their vote and give the ANC government the red card. What this report does tell us is that the Department of Human Settlements has got no grip whatsoever. It simply can't be that the lives and interests of South Africans continue to rest in the passive hands of this government, because there is a shot at a South African government that cares under the DA. Woza 2024, Woza. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. The next speaker is from the EFF.
Our side, thank you, Chairperson. Our side will once more affirm and vindicate the position of the economic freedom fighters to build the state capacity and abolish tenders. As part of our oversight in the Northern Cape and Northwest Province, housing situation is in the dire state. One of the most devastating findings was seeing how women contractors are not empowered as they should be in the center of housing delivery, but their participation is limited and restricted. The policy from the department to enforce the allocation of 40% of government procurement spend to women-owned business implemented the skills development program for women, and also to provide the support to women that they must start their own business and obtain their necessary experience through incubator and the mentorship program. This plan is an ideal, but unfortunately, it is current status. The current status quo of women contractors are used as a scapegoat for the projects that have already failed and are not expected to be finalized I expected them to finalize those projects that have expelled from the male counterpart. The need to attain international, the need to be at international to attempt the empowerment of women is not that of the cosmetic attempt to appease the media and the compliance of the department. The unfinished pre-94 housing project are still in the major concern as the beneficiaries are still living in habitable condition after the 30 years so-called democrats. It is important to understand that having housing is a democratic right and all citizens enshrined in Chapter 2 of the South African Constitution. Having a house and a home, it gives one a sense of dignity, restore their humanity. This is extremely important to expropriate land without compensation because the basics of housing is land. The current rollovers of money is a clear sign of incompetent administration that should absolutely no interest of serving our people at heart. Both Northwest and Northern Cape Provincial Department has exhibited the poor administration and internal control system. There is no consequence management for this incompetence. The households that are complete are in occupy with no clear plan with who must collect the rental, like the issue of Lerato Park SRU in Kimberley. The SRU in Northwest made recommendation to the department, to the province, that there must be consequence management and they must make sure the heads are rolling. But to date, there is no consequence management that are happening in that province, regardless the clear recommendation of the SRU. We have noted that the occupants of SRU units are now started to boycott their rental because of the government allowed them to enter without proper control arrangement. This cannot be a trend. It must be condemned. The Northwest Provincial Department has no clear plan to service the site, regardless of receiving the grant from the national government. Every time the money is being taken back by the national department, which means they are not willing to service our people. Lastly, we also want to commend the Northern Cape for having a clear plan on service side and also to utilize the allocated grant that are receiving from the national government. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. A member from the IFP, UDM, ATM, good. The Honorable Sheikh Imam, NFP. Honorable Sheikh Imam. I pass. Member from the AIC, COPE, PAC, the Honorable CN Malemacha from the ANC.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, the African National Congress in this August House declared its full support for the report of the Portfolio Committee on Human Settlement on Oversight to Northern Cape and Northwest Province as tabled by Honorable Sminya. Our Constitution guarantees every South African citizen the right to access adequate housing, and the government should take reasonable steps to realize that right. The Department of Human Settlement is implementing a number of programs to realize the right to access adequate housing through the provision of BNG houses, the redevelopment of hostels into community residential units, the provision of service stands, the upgrading of informal settlement, and the restoration of Title Deed to pre- and post-1994 houses. Furthermore, the ANC-led government has prioritized the provision of housing to military veterans, the people who gave up their life to fight for the liberation of our country against colonialism and apartheid. The Northern Cape Province has managed to deliver more than 1,400 brand-new ground house while also providing 40 households with home loan through the finance link individual subsidy program that is flipped. In addition, the province has also managed to provide service sites to households that will build in their dream houses while redeveloping apartheid hostel into community residential units. Furthermore, the province has upgraded at least 13 informal settlements in the history of the upgrading process, meaning that more people have access to adequate sanitation, safe, clean drinking water, accessing title deed, ensuring home ownership. We applaud the province for restoring people's dignity through the issuance of the title deeds. Similarly, the Northwest province has been hard at work implementing the departmental program. Thus far, the department has managed to provide more than 7,000 service sites to households that have the financial capacity to build their own houses, while also building and handing over more than 3,200 BNG houses to indigent houses. We have noticed the province has been facing challenges in the provision of housing to military veterans due to the fact that beneficiaries are scattered around the province. We commend the department for prioritizing the participation of women in the construction of houses. The good work done by the two provincial departments in ensuring that we live up to the injunction of the Freedom Charter, that there shall be houses, security and comfort, is the basis of our support for the oversight report as presented here by Honorable Machweni Rosina Kemenya. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. That concludes the debate and the business of this visual mini-plenary session. The mini-plenary will now rise.
Mandla.
Long live.
As